Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. The easiest way to lose a man's attention before you even get it is to walk up and say, "Hi, how are you?" Now, don't get me wrong. It's polite. It's nice. But let's be real. Everybody says that. His boss says that. His neighbor says that. The cashier at the grocery store says that. So when you come in with the same old tired everyday line, you just put yourself right in the crowd with everybody else. And trust me, if you want him to notice you, if you want him to light up when you speak, you can't be sounding like everybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you straight. You ever notice how everybody greets you the exact same way? You walk in a room, you walk down the street, you check out at the store, and the line is always the same. "Hi, how are you?" Now, I know it sounds polite. I know it's the proper thing to say, but the truth is it's tired. It's worn out. It's basic. And the last thing you ever want to be when you're trying to get somebody's attention is basic. Because let me tell you, men hear that phrase all day long. From their coworkers, from their mama, from the waiter bringing their food, from strangers passing by. And when you use it on him, you just become part of the noise. A man doesn't light up when he hears "Hi, how are you?" because he's already numb to it. You might as well be asking him if he wants paper or plastic. That's how bland it sounds. It doesn't spark his imagination. It doesn't give him anything to hold on to, and it definitely doesn't make you stand out. And if you're trying to catch a man's attention, you don't want to blend into the wallpaper. You want to shine so bright he can't stop thinking about you. Now, let me break this down for you. A man's mind works real simple when it comes to attraction. He notices what's different. He notices what feels special. Think about it. If 10 women walk by him today and 9 of them smile politely and say, "Hi, how are you?" but one of them says something sharp, something playful, something that feels like it was meant just for him, guess which woman he's remembering? It's not the 9 polite ones, I'll tell you that. It's the one who gave him a line he's never heard before. That's the one who sticks in his head. See, when you come with the ordinary, you don't give him a reason to stop what he's doing. But when you come with something different, something that makes him laugh, something that makes him raise an eyebrow and think, "Now who is this?" That's when you've got him. Men crave that little jolt, that little surprise. That's what makes you unforgettable. Let me give you an example. A man walks into a room. He's dressed nice, got his shirt pressed, shoes polished, smelling good. Now, you could walk up to him and say, "Hi, how are you?" And he'll say, "Fine, thank you." And boom, the whole conversation is dead in the water. He'll be polite, but he won't remember you in 10 minutes. But imagine instead you walk up and say, "All right, now who let you leave the house looking this sharp? You trying to make everybody else look bad?" You just gave him a compliment, but you also made it playful, unique, and unforgettable. And you better believe he'll be thinking about that line later. This is the difference between being noticed and being remembered. And ladies, don't get it twisted. Men may act tough, but we love it when somebody sees us in a way the world usually doesn't. Most men go through their whole day unnoticed. Nobody pays attention to the little things. So when you do, when you break that pattern, when you say something that isn't the cookie cutter, "Hi, how are you?" you make him feel seen, and that feeling is powerful. Because here's the truth. Men don't fall for ordinary. Men fall for extraordinary. They fall for the woman who looks them in the eye and says something that hits different. They fall for the woman who's not afraid to step outside the script. That's the kind of woman who makes his heart race. That's the kind of woman who separates herself from every hi, how are you he's ever heard in his life. So remember this. If you want to spark something real, if you want to make him pause, smile, and think about you long after the moment has passed, don't you dare open with that tired line. Give him something he hasn't heard 1,000 times already. Because when you do that, you're no longer part of the background, you're the highlight of his day. And that's how you get him hooked. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about life and love that too many people overlook. First impressions matter. They don't just matter a little bit, they matter a whole lot. In fact, they can be the difference between being remembered or being forgotten, between opening the door to a real connection or having it slam shut before it even starts. And when it comes to men, I promise you, those first words you say, that first sentence that comes out your mouth, that's where the magic begins. You can set the whole tone of how he sees you with the very first thing you say. Now here's the truth. Men are wired to make snap judgments. He's sizing you up in those first few seconds, not just with his eyes, but with his ears. He's listening to how you approach him, what you lead with, how much confidence is in your voice. If you walk up with a dull, hi, how are you? You already put yourself in the same box as everybody else. He might smile politely, he might answer, but inside his head is thinking, heard that before, and once he's put you in that category, it's hard to climb out. But if you come in with something different, something that sounds alive, something that shows you're paying attention, you change everything. Suddenly you're not just another hello, you're a spark. You're the reason he's leaning in instead of checking out. That's the power of first words. They can either close the book before it even gets started, or they can open a whole new chapter. Think about it this way. Imagine you walk into a bookstore and somebody hands you a book with the plainest, driest first line you've ever read. Something like, "This is the beginning of a story." You'd roll your eyes and put it right back on the shelf. But if that book starts with a line that grabs you, something that makes you curious, you're hooked. You want to keep turning the pages. That's how men feel. The first words out your mouth are like the opening line of that book. If it's bland, he'll close it. If it's powerful, he'll lean in to see what comes next. And let me tell you, when you say something unique, it doesn't even have to be fancy. It just has to show him that you see more than what's on the surface. A man walks in with his tie a little crooked, and instead of, "Hi, how are you?" you say, "Looks like you tied that in a hurry, but you're pulling it off." That's playful, that's original, that's memorable. Or he's carrying a cup of coffee, and you say, "Now tell me, is that your first cup or your survival kit?" Suddenly, you've got him smiling, and he didn't even see it coming. That's the kind of first impression that sets you apart. Well, because let's be real, men don't remember polite greetings. They remember the moments that made them laugh, the moments that caught them off guard, the moments that made them feel like somebody actually noticed the little details. That's what sticks. That's what gets replayed in his head when he's driving home. And that's what makes him want more. Now, ladies, I know some of you might be thinking, "But Steve, what if I get nervous? What if I don't know what to say?" Let me tell you this, nervous or not, confidence isn't about never feeling scared. It's about doing it anyway. It's about trusting that your personality, your uniqueness is enough to carry you. When you walk up and you speak with a little energy, a little humor, a little curiosity, you're already winning, because confidence is the thing men can't resist. And nothing shows confidence more than choosing words that feel fresh, not recycled. First impressions are powerful because they set the whole foundation. You don't build a house on a shaky foundation and expect it to last. The same goes for connection. If you start out ordinary, it's hard to build anything extraordinary. But if you start with impact, if you start with something that makes him feel seen and makes him curious about you, you've already laid down the strongest foundation possible. That's how instant attraction happens. That's how two strangers go from nothing to something real. So remember this: when you open your mouth, you are opening a door. You decide whether that door is just another hallway to nowhere or the start of something unforgettable. And it all comes down to that first impression. Say something that lights a spark, and watch how fast that spark turns into fire. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about men that most people don't really understand. Men crave uniqueness. A man might not say it out loud, but he wants a woman who makes him feel like he's experiencing something brand new. He doesn't want the same old lines, the same old approach, the same old conversations he's been hearing since high school. He wants to feel like he's meeting someone who stands out, someone who's not afraid to be different, someone who has that little spark of curiosity or charm that separates her from the rest. You see, when a man is out in the world, he gets approached, noticed, or interacted with in ways that all sound the same. Hi, how are you? How's your day? What do you do for work? Now, don't get me wrong, these aren't bad things to say, but they don't leave a mark. They don't make his mind race. They don't make his heart skip. They don't make him sit there thinking about you when the conversation is over. What's that is uniqueness. That's what makes a man lock in and say, wait a minute, who is this woman? And uniqueness doesn't mean you've got to put on some big performance. You don't need to come in juggling, singing, or trying to be somebody you're not. Uniqueness means being bold enough to let your natural curiosity and your natural charm come through. If you see him holding something in his hand, ask about it like it matters. If he's got a certain expression on his face, point it out in a playful way. That's curiosity. That's charm. That's how you create a moment he wasn't expecting. Let me paint you a picture. A man sitting at a coffee shop, drinking his latte, scrolling his phone. 10 people walk past and barely notice him. But you stop, smile, and say, all right, what's got you looking so serious over that phone? You studying for an exam or just deep in a group chat? That's curiosity. That's different. That's showing him you're not just gliding past like everybody else. And trust me, he'll remember that. He'll remember the woman who dared to notice, who dared to engage, who dared to stand out. Men fall in love with women who make them feel alive. And nothing makes a man feel more alive than realizing he's dealing with somebody who's not predictable. Predictable is boring. Predictable is forgettable. But unique is exciting. Unique is unforgettable. That's the woman he goes home talking about. That's the woman who makes him replay the moment in his head while he's lying in bed at night. And here's the beauty of it. Uniqueness doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as saying what's on your mind when everybody else is too shy. It can be as simple as asking a question no one else would think to ask. It can be as simple as turning an ordinary situation into a playful one. That's charm. That's the thing that separates you from the crowd without you even trying too hard. Now, let me keep it real. Men have egos. And when you come at a man with uniqueness, you make him feel like he's worth noticing in a way no one else has noticed before. You make him feel like he's special. And when a man feels special around you, you've already got half the battle won. Because men don't chase what feels ordinary. They chase what feels extraordinary. They chase what lights them up inside. I'll give you an example. A man walks into a room with a bold pair of shoes on. 9 people think it, but don't say a word. You walk up and say, now hold on. Those shoes deserve their own spotlight. That's charm. That's courage. That's uniqueness. And that's the exact thing that makes him think, oh, she different. So understand this. Men crave uniqueness because it's rare. Most people blend in. Most people play it safe. But the woman who's got the courage to be curious, the woman who's got the charm to be playful, the woman who's not afraid to stand out, she's the one he'll never forget. She's the one who becomes more than just another hello. She's the one who becomes unforgettable. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real clear. Men may act tough. They may act like they don't need much, but deep down, every man craves one thing. He wants somebody to take a real interest in who he is. Not just what he looks like, not just what he does for a living, not just the small talk everybody throws around, but who he actually is as a person. And the sad truth is, most men don't get that. Day in and day out, they get hit with surface conversations. How's work? How's your day? What's up? It's all shallow, it's all routine, and it's all forgettable. That's why when a woman comes along who actually digs a little deeper, who asks the kind of questions that show she cares about what makes him tick, that man lights up in a way you've never seen. See, small talk is easy. Anybody can ask, how are you? But real interest, that takes effort. That takes listening. That takes paying attention. A man notices the difference right away. When you look at him and ask something beyond the surface, it makes him feel like he matters. And let me tell you, there's nothing more attractive to a man than feeling like he matters. Think about it. A man goes through his whole day with people treating him like a role. At work, he's the employee. At home, he might be the son, the brother, the provider. Out in the world, he's just another face in the crowd. But when you stop and show interest in him, the man behind the role, you're giving him something rare. You're giving him the feeling that he's not invisible, that somebody actually wants to know who he is, not just what he does. That's powerful. That's magnetic. Now, I'm not talking about grilling him like you're doing an interview. I'm talking about curiosity that feels natural. Instead of saying, how's your day? You might ask, what's been the best part of your day so far? See, that forces him to think about something positive. It makes him open up, and it shows you're not just going through the motions. Instead of saying, what do? You could say, what made you choose that line of work? Now we get to share his story. And men love sharing their story when someone actually wants to hear it. And here's the kicker. When you show genuine interest, you don't just learn about him, you make him feel seen. Most men walk around carrying burdens, carrying dreams, carrying insecurities, and they don't get to talk about it because nobody asks. So when you're the one who does, he connects that feeling of relief, that feeling of being valued directly to you. And that connection, that's where attraction grows deeper than just the surface. Let me give you an example. A man's talking about sports because that's what everybody talks about. You can keep it surface, nod along.